much. Joining us right now is Natasha Sarin. She's president and co-founder of the Budget Lab at Yale. She also served as counselor to former Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. Thanks for being here. It's good to see you, Natasha. Let's focus in. There's just been kind of a slew, if you will, of new tariffs threatened, promised, we could also say, in just the last, I would even say just 24 hours, really, that I wanted to walk through with you to try to wrap our mind around where are we with this trade war. First and foremost, what we heard now, he's targeting Canada again, promising, threatening a 35% tariff on imports from Canada. This is in the midst of negotiations over their trade deal, just as Canada had promised to rescind a digital services tax that Trump had been railing against, so it seemed a concession. And then you have this. So is it clear to you, if this would go into effect now, what impact this new tariff would have?
Well, so we at the Budget Lab at Yale have been trying to, in real time, keep pace with all of the tariff announcements that are coming out from the administration. What I can tell you is, as of late last night, effective tariff rates were around 18%. That's the highest they've been since 1934. That would translate to increased costs on the goods that Americans consume on the order of about $2,300 a year. Now, just this morning, we're waking up to a new 35% tariff on Canada and also potentially increases in the baseline tariff rates on all countries. Trump has floated maybe a 15% or a 20% baseline. And so what you're seeing here is moving towards escalating and increasing tariffs relative to where we were previously. And it kind of raises the question of, like, what exactly is the end game here? Like, what are we trying to accomplish?
Exactly. What is enough? When is enough? That it is just like, let's just say baseline is unclear. I mean, it has not been articulated when enough is enough in terms of the trade imbalance that they are looking at, or when the imports, it's not clear. But to your point, then there's more. Then the president also said yesterday that the new baseline is going to be 15 or 20%. Here's the quote as he told it to NBC News. "We're just going to say all the remaining countries are going to pay, whether it's 20% or 15%, we'll work that out now." If you read into that, the baseline right now has been 10%, right? The across-the-board tariff is 10%. So what is that going to mean? And where does that really leave this trade war if now you could say everyone across the globe and markets were prepared and settling into a baseline 10%? But what does this then do?
So, and I think part of it kind of goes to where we started, which is in just the last 24 hours, in just the last few days, you've seen tariff rates move pretty dramatically. And if you look at where we are relative to where we were in January, we've seen more than 60 different tariff announcements. So effective tariff rates have gone up, they've gone down, there's been a pause.
It's felt like that, but putting a number on it is quite something.
And kind of like we're in a situation where if you're thinking about not just the impact on consumers, but also the impact on businesses who are trying to make investment decisions, how exactly are they supposed to know where this is all going to land?
The word from businesses is we're paralyzed.
And it makes sense, right? Because should you move manufacturing to the U.S. if, in a couple of months or a couple of weeks, you're going to see tariffs go off on these countries and tariff rates be lower? Should you actually invest in, if this is really about China, should you invest in manufacturing in Vietnam or in India? Because those are places that allow us to have sort of more of an allied relationship with respect to our trading partners. And if this is fundamentally about revenue raising, if it's about the idea that we just had this massive deficit busting tax and spending bill last week and we need to find revenue to sort of make up for that, well, then these tariff rates are high and they're just going to keep getting higher.
But then can you add into that, if there is a very explicit example of now it has nothing to do with economic policy and revenue raising when you're talking about Brazil.
Totally.
So you have this threatened tariff on Brazil, and in the way the president lays it out, he's explicitly saying that he's using the tariff to try to help a political ally, saying nothing about economic policy. And the U.S. has a trade surplus with Brazil.
And that's so I have really been sort of, as an economist, kind of frustrated by the focus of this administration on trade deficits because, like, I run a trade deficit with Whole Foods, and it's good that I'm able to go there and buy food rather than having to sort of go and produce it myself. But if you do think trade deficits are the central focus, then putting a 50% tariff on a country where we've had a trade surplus for the last 15 years doesn't really comport with that type of an explanation. And kind of they're being explicit, it's really about other stuff. And then that raises the question, if it's really about other stuff, again, how do you plan, how do you have any certainty when there's likely to be more and more sets of policy priorities that we're trying to use this one particular really ill-suited tool to try and address.
Right, and remember, if you want to add, just as we close, with Canada, had to do with the fentanyl crisis as well. So this is just a very good example of the administration does need to answer and clarify some of these questions at some point.
Totally, and not just clarify, also explain why American consumers should bear the cost for all of this.
We will see. It's great to see you, Natasha. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks so much.